All right, there we are, everybody. Welcome to Nerdside Champs. We are here. Yeah, I know you were afraid. I know you were desperately, anticipating. You thought maybe we weren't going to make it, but have no fear. We have arrived. And also on the outlook, tomorrow, a new Scream movie hits theaters. And whether you love this franchise or think it's running on fumes, there's no denying one thing: meta horror changed the genre forever. But here's the real question: has it peaked? Tonight, we're going back to where this really started, not just with Scream, but with Wes Craven's New Nightmare. The moment horror looked at the audience and said, this is a movie, right? Tonight, we're going back to where this really started. Oh, wait a minute. From there, we got self-aware slashers, rule books for surviving horror, sequels that comment on sequels, and eventually full-blown genre dissections like The Cabin in the Woods. So where are we now? Are we still evolving meta horror, or are we stuck repeating commentary on commentary? With a new Scream arriving tomorrow, this feels like the perfect time to ask, what's next? So tomorrow the Scream drops. I think we need to, we're going to talk meta horror. So definitions, how do we define meta horror? Tim, how would you define meta horror?
I think when I think of meta horror, I think of a movie that is very aware that it's a movie, a lot of winking and nodding at the audience, a lot of fourth wall breaking that's not fourth wall breaking. You know what I mean? We were talking about Scream 3 before we hopped on here, right? One of the things about Scream 3 is it has one of those moments that is a fourth wall. It's a direct line to the audience, and it's when they watch Randy's video, Randy is talking to the audience. He's not talking to Sydney. Okay, he's talking to the audience there. He's looking, and it was brilliant because they could just take the footage from that camera and put it on the audience, and he's looking directly at you and telling you what happens in the final installment of a trilogy. And that is, in my mind, that's the kind of stuff that we're looking at. When I think of meta horror, I think of the thing, it's very self-aware. It kind of plays on itself, and there's a lot of winking and nodding at the audience kind of thing. So that's kind of what I think of. Jason, what do you think of?
Okay, I think for it to be meta, it has to have a very, very twisted, dark sense of humor with it. I think you as an audience member get to have fun knowing that it's a show, but for it to be really good meta horror, the characters can't know they're in a movie. So, even though they talk about the rules and whatnot, they are applying it to a very real life situation. And the movie that we're going to talk about does this excellently, and not even on purpose, because I have some facts about New Nightmare that blew my mind when I read them today. So I think it's dark humor meeting characters that are taking everything super seriously, but you, the audience, are in on it. So I think that's how meta horror works the best, when the characters themselves aren't in on it.
So before I go, let's see, Thug Dog, frequent commenter, says that meta horror is definitely satire, and says there's way too much comedy in it for it not to be. Now, here's where
I don't know that I agree with that.
Yeah,
I don't know that I agree with that.
Yeah. I think that it's important though to point that out, because meta horror is not parody; it's deconstruction. For the purpose of what we're talking about, and generally, I would argue that this is the correct thing. Like, Scary Movie is not meta horror; that's a parody of horror.
It's a parody of meta horror. Yeah.
Yeah. So meta is not Halloween. It's not Nightmare 1 or Friday the 13th. It's not totally earnest like that. It's also not just over the top. Not Ernest Borgnine. Ernest as sincere, Tim. Ernest as in sincere.
Sorry,
those
I'm sorry.
not Ernest Borgnine, Ernest P. Worrell.
Ernest scared stupid, and I was just,
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, it's not Ernest P. Worrell. It's Ernest is insincere. The people younger than Jason have no idea what we're laughing about right now. They don't even know
no
who Ernest
idea, no idea.
Yeah. So anyway, so just know that we're not talking about Scary Movie. We're talking about Scream and some things like Scream. They're serious. It's real world. They don't know they're in a movie, but they know movies. So with that in mind, though, did meta horror kill sincerity? The moment it started winking at the audience, did movies stop being scary? Does irony replace fear?
I don't.
No, go ahead, Jason. You go ahead. Yeah. Does irony?
Right in. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jason. Does irony replace fear?
I don't think so, because we have gotten Hereditary had some very unsettling, scary. Like, we've gotten elevated horror now, where the thing to be scared of is trauma. Like, that has come over in the last 10 years. So fear in movies will always evolve, but irony definitely might have killed the slasher film. Besides Scream, for some reason, Scream can keep going on. Like, they're always successful.
So
I think,
what do you think, Tim?
One of the things about a meta horror film, you almost don't know that it's a meta horror before you go in. That's the way it was with me in Scream. I saw the trailer for Scream over and over and over again on TV. They propped it up. It was the Drew Barrymore scene where she opened the door and she screamed, and then it just went to scream, and that was it, right? Like, they built it up like it was just going to be a traditional slasher film. And going in, that's what you expected. You didn't expect something that was semi-goofy and self-aware and kind of living on the legend of slasher film. You expected an actual slasher film. And so I think that's kind of an element that I think is lost, by a lot of people. You got to have that going in. You got to almost think going in that you're going to see a serious horror movie. And then about a quarter of the way through, you're like, no, there's way too many times when they're talking directly to the audience for this to be normal and not a meta horror story. So I feel like that's kind of what, the way I feel about it. I feel like meta horror, like the comment that we just had about it definitely being satire, I just don't think I agree with that. I think that there are some satirical elements to it. Like, that's the thing about Scream. Scream essentially is the outline of a slasher film. It's not really a slasher film itself, but there are characters, and those characters are not always aware of what's going on and the greater storyline and how slasher film generics play into the whole thing. They're not always like that. So I do feel like it's not always satirical. It is a little goofy for me. It's not really my taste. And I'll openly say that. I love a lot of classic horror. This to me is kind of where horror kind of fell off the rails and started going a different direction than I personally like. And, I think it was right around the early 2000s that this started becoming kind of a commonplace thing that it's not my favorite.
I will say Scream, in and of itself, it introduced a lot of the humor, but it found a way, because you didn't know how meta it was going to be going in. And I put our initial comment, we do like scary movies, because Tim talked about the trailer, and the trailer was basically the first couple minutes of the movie. Do you like scary movies? And the way that it maintained horror while still being meta is that it pulled the rug out from under you, and it subverted all of your, anticipations. It like led the audience this way and then did this instead. That trailer, the reason Scream was scary is that they killed Drew Barrymore in the first 5 or 10 minutes. She was in every Yeah. She was in every trailer. She was the trailer. She was dead center front on the poster. And she was the biggest star in the movie. Like, she was the most famous person in the whole movie, and she was dead like that. And you went into that movie knowing that she was the main girl. She was the Heather Langenkamp. She was the Jamie Lee Curtis. She was going to be the girl at the end of the film. You knew that going in, and then she wasn't. So that's how they preserve. So you can preserve horror, but it is a question. But before we get too deep down the scream road, we gotta take a step back. We gotta take a step back, and we've got a comment here. I Am the Night says New Nightmare is the OG for the genre, in my opinion, and I don't know if there's somebody out there in a comment that could throw out an earlier film that really set the stage for meta horror. You could try to challenge and say that something else was the true genesis, but let me take you back to 1994.
When was Evil Dead? I guess that might be kind of
Evil Dead 2.
Maybe Evil Dead.
Evil Dead 2, yeah. But again,
we didn't. I'm sure there was a zombie movie at some point that was really, really meta, and in maybe the 80s. But I know that when we got to the sequels, they redid Night of the Living Dead. What was that, in the late 80s? And then they did all the really terrible sequels to Night of the Living Dead, and those were all very meta. It was all very, everybody all of a sudden is aware of all of the zombie rules and all that kind of stuff. It's completely different than what you had in Night of the Living Dead, when people are like, "Oh, what are these people doing here?" So that kind of stuff. Yeah, there definitely were some in like that. Like I said, maybe the 80s, early 90s, but if you're asking about the first time when a character is aware of their legend, I think that's when New Nightmare comes up. I don't think that you get that from Evil Dead or any of the zombie movie stuff. If you're asking when a character is aware of who they are to other people in legend, that's where you get New Nightmare, and that's where you get kind of that meta feel.
So how old would y'all have been during New Nightmare? Like, when New Nightmare came out, how old?
I was 11. I was 11 when it came out.
I turned 15 in 1994. So
that would have been right in your wheelhouse at that
point. Oh yeah.
Time, right?
Yeah. Like,
it was only 2 years before Scream. I mean, it wasn't like it was only 2 years before Scream. So
so I was in 1994, I would have been a sophomore, right? I graduated in 97. So I was a sophomore.
How many Elm Streets were we in, Dan, at that point?
We had 8. I think it was 8, or was it? How many are there? All of them Freddy's Dead had come and gone. So
Freddy's Dead is 7.
Is it 7? Okay, Dreamchild is 5, right? What's 6?
Mm-hmm.
What's 6 called?
Hang on. All right, you've got Freddy's Revenge is 2, Dream Warriors is 3. What is 4? I know Dreamchild is 5.
I know that the 4 is the one with Alice, Welcome to Wonderland, Alice, and all that. Yeah, I know that's what 4 is, with the Roach Motel.
The best kill in all the movies is the Roach Motel.
And then 5 is Dreamchild. I don't remember 6. And then you have so there had either been 7 or 8 nightmares in 10 years. It had been 10 years. A Nightmare on Elm Street was 1984, and you'd had 7 or 8 Freddy movies in a 10-year span. And New Nightmare really kind of lays the stage pretty well. By this point, Freddy Krueger was a Halloween costume. He was a children's toy. He was a mascot in commercials. He was everywhere.
Freddy was rapping about him.
Yeah. You had Nightmare on My Street was going on, and it wasn't just Freddy. I mean, Jason Voorhees was receiving Lifetime Achievement Awards at the MTV Movie Awards, and like the slasher, Michael Myers was down a big hill of irrelevance by this point. And
I was gonna say, I mean, it almost got to the point with the Halloween films where they kind of resorted to meta and they kind of resorted to Michael being legend. And I think by the time we got to H2O and Resurrection, that's kind of where we were, which was what,
Yeah,
98 to 2000 ish kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
I think
So
Yeah, that was
H2O was
98, I think that was
98.
That was Josh Hartnett's first film. So yeah, it was right before
Yeah.
the Faculty, which was another one that was a meta film. You know,
Very
they even wink
so-
and nod at the time at the fact that they're doing Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I mean, they
Which
they
is,
look
I mean,
right
it's
at you and tell you that.
it's
So,
fun that Halloween went meta in like '98 because you could say Freddy and Jason and all of the other slashers owe their origins to Michael Myers, right?
Mhm.
And now here's Freddy blazing a path for Michael to try, and I would say they did not nail it
Nope.
quite as well
no,
as they did. So
yeah.
so by '94, the slasher genre is feeling pretty tired. People are
No, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time we got to 94, is when, we had so many Friday the 13th movies. We had so many Halloween movies. We had so many Nightmare movies that people were just tired. They were tired of the character. There's only so much you can do with these characters. And people wanted to go a different direction with the same character. And I thought that's that's actually something that was worth talking about, is what can we do different with these same characters? So that's it. You can't just keep making. By the time we got to, I think Dan mentioned it, Jason Goes to Hell. By the time we got to that, right? Like, did we
That's a
really
bonkers
need
movie.
Jason Goes to Hell? This is one of those. It's like I have a feeling that most people were just like, oh my goodness, do I have to go see another Jason movie? And that's kind of where the slasher genre had gotten. It was very, very tired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Thug Dog is right there. Meta horror definitely was a response to slasher fatigue because they went to Wes Craven and wanted him to direct another Freddy movie. And Wes, he wrote and directed Nightmare on Elm Street. He originated all of these characters, but he hadn't so much as watched any of the sequels at that point. He was, and he's like, so, I saw interviews. Like, so I sat down and I watched the sequels, and he could not find a through line, any kind of mythology or continuity that made any sense to him for the character he had created. So he was like, okay, but they were offering him a lot of money. So he's like, I got to figure out something new. And, he just horror invaded the real world. He had the actors playing themselves. Freddy he has this concept that there's these natural evils that exist, and a storyteller, if they capture the essence of that evil, can trap. Yeah, it could be trapped in the story to where it can't do any harm for as long as it's trapped. But then if the story dies or becomes irrelevant or gets watered down, the evil is freed. And the premise of New Nightmare is that this evil likes being Freddy Krueger, and that's why it still looks like Freddy, but it's a different Freddy. And the actors play themselves. And while we're on that New Nightmare, I gotta say I have a formula that equals, it's guaranteed me. There's an academic proof for it. This you take this to geometry class. Heather Langenkamp plus Freddy Krueger equals great movie. That is that is my horror math.
Yeah. So two things actually that I like. I told you I'd read some cool things about New Nightmare that kind of made it even more meta, and they didn't even mean for it to be. So the first one is he originally had the kind of idea of Freddy Krueger being this like ancient evil, and he was going to do that was going to be Dream Warriors. And New Line said, absolutely not. You're not getting rid of our character. So because he is involved in Dream Warriors. He comes back. And so that was the first thing. So he had the Colonel. But then, who plays Nancy again? What's her name? Heather
Langenkamp.
Heather Langenkamp had a stalker. And in the movie, they kind of play with her having a stalker.
Yeah.
That's a
She's
plot
getting
point,
the phone calls again. Yeah.
Mhm. But that was in real life. Like, she was being stalked by somebody.
Oh, wow.
And
So,
the most incredible meta fact of the movie. So they filmed this movie in, I think, 93.
okay.
Do you know what else happened in 93? The earthquakes. So when
Oh,
she
my God.
drives by, yeah, so when she
Yeah.
drives by the building that's like, torn down, that
Yeah.
legitimately was an actual building that was torn down. Like, he wrote the script and then earthquakes started, and he was like, well, we might as well film it.
I think I would have been afraid because you write in the script, Wes Craven is having nightmares and then writing them down in a script, and then it's all coming true. And then he starts filming this movie where there's earthquakes and there's an earthquake. I think I would have I would have stopped filming and went and found a priest.
You're like, I'm sorry, man.
But yeah, so here's the thing about New Nightmare. It wasn't parody at all. And it's existential horror about fiction. Like, it's deep. Like, it's like, what is the meaning of stories? Why are stories important? What is horror's function? That kind of thing. And there's no cheeky, we know the rules to survive this. I mean, it's Freddy, so you get a few one-liners, but this is not meta humor with New Nightmare. I mean,
It's not like Scream.
No,
it's completely different than Scream.
Yeah,
this killed MTV Freddy Krueger is what it did, which is
Yeah.
it's fine. Like Freddy Krueger will never be with the fat boys again. Like, he is a stone cold killer in this movie.
So that's going to lead me to my next big discussion point here. I'm putting it out there. New Nightmare underperformed at the box office compared to other Nightmare movies. I think it's found its following now. I think it's very well respected, but it could be argued that New Nightmare is smarter than Scream. It's a braver movie, and that Scream is just more crowd pleasing. So what do we think of that? Jason, I'll let you go first again.
I disagree with that, and I will tell you why. All that he is doing in New Nightmare is he's deconstructing a character that he wrote. And as you know, Dan, you agree with me on this. I don't like for characters that I like to be deconstructed. Like, I like my characters to be those characters. Scream, he's just deconstructing an entire genre. And I think that's why that works better than New Nightmare does, in my opinion.
So, Tim, what do you think?
I do agree with it, and I'll tell you why. And I think that what we're going for in Scream was not superior cinematic quality. Okay, that's not what he was going for. This is the horror equivalent of like the Expendables, where it's just famous people and explosions, right? Like that was the Expendables, bunch of famous people, explosions. Well, this is a bunch of famous people and murder. That's what it was. We're going to put a bunch of famous people in this movie. A bunch of them are going to die, and that's going to be more of a crowd pleasing factor than what we get out of New Nightmare, which is the deconstructing of a character like Jason was talking about, but a little more on the dark side. Yes, it's very self-aware, but not as much of the winking and nodding at the audience as what we get in Scream, I don't think. And that's kind of where I think the audience kind of jumps in and kind of attaches to Scream a little more. There's a reason, in my opinion, that this franchise is still going strong, right? And New Nightmare didn't have 6 or 7 of them like like Scream did. And I think it's because the audience really, really responded to Scream better than they anticipated. And we got to Scream 2. It was like, it's super predictable to me. Okay. Scream 2 is super predictable, but that's what the audience really liked at the time. The audience didn't like being tricked. They didn't like the, M. Night Shyamalan type stuff where it's just, we're going to go this way instead of this way kind of thing. It actually was one of those things where if you had seen Scream 1, what happened in Scream 2 was not surprising at all. Okay. And so to me, it was one of those things when they knew that people liked Scream 2, they knew that they had a genre that people were going to stick with. And that's kind of where I think, this is why we're looking at, Scream 7 being released here some 20 some years later.
Well, New Nightmare is not a mystery, and people love mysteries. Like, there's a reason that Agatha Christie is, as famous as she is. Like, people love to try to figure stuff out, and Scream will always give you let me sit down and try to figure out who this is. And that's an element that New Nightmare doesn't have. But New Nightmare plays the hits. You get the "I'm your boyfriend now" line where he licks her through the phone.
Yep.
You get they recreate the death on the wall in the hospital.
That's a big moment. Yep.
Yeah.
A great moment. Or Rough Body.
Yeah. Always great. great in the first one. Great in the last one.
The first one, in all seriousness, in the first one, that death absolutely made me lose sleep for weeks. It was unbelievable. I forget how old I was the first time I saw it, maybe 8 or 9, but it was one of the most terrifying moments in cinema history to me. And to recreate that moment in New Nightmare was very good.
Yeah. You got Heather running upstairs and they turned into goo that she fell into. And Freddie raising up out of the bed. That was like a repeat moment. So it did play the hits, and it tweaked it enough. And I like New Nightmare. I feel like it doesn't demystify Freddie, because I don't like it when you get too much. When you have a mysterious character, the more you learn about that character, the less cool they are. And I don't care if you're talking about Wolverine or Boba Fett or, Anakin Skywalker. The more you learn, the lamer they become. But to me, the character in New Nightmare is not Freddy Krueger. It's not the same character that we followed in the other Freddy movies. This is in a totally different reality, and this is an ancient evil that was trapped by those stories. So it's not the same. And I like the philosophical ideas. Yeah, but it did do well enough. It's not like it bombed, and it's not like Wes Craven didn't get any more movies.
He got Scream right after it.
Yeah. So that right next we have New Nightmare. Flash 8 Fast says New Nightmare started meta horror, but Scream perfected it, adding almost comedic but not hokey tropes to a slasher film is genius. So a couple years later, Wes was going to take another bite at this meta concept, but he didn't write this one. And this might be what you guys like so much. Jason, are you a Dawson's Creek fan? Because this was written by Kevin Williamson.
I was just about to tell you. Okay, every day of the summer, my 13, 14-year-old self would get up. My mom would have me a crisp sandwich from Burger King, and I would sit up and I would watch Dawson's Creek from about 8:30 to 10:30 before I started my day. Like, I had to have my stories.
So I think we've unlocked something here.
Dude, Dawson's Creek is rad, okay?
I don't want to wait.
Exactly.
For our lives to be over.
Who wants to know right now? This is hilarious.
Weirdly enough, it's Kevin Williams, right?
Williamson. Son.
Yeah.
Williamson.
Or Kevin Williamson. He's coming back for Scream 7. He wrote it and directed it. So
wow.
But
wow.
I will say what I love about I this is gonna just turn into how much I love Scream. But like I love that Scream always evolves. Like in 5, they take so many shots at Star Wars. Like because around the time 5 comes out, The Force Awakens and Last Jedi had already happened. So like they spend like 15 minutes making fun of Star Wars. And I'm like, I support this.
So what you're telling me now, full confession, me and Tim have not seen a Scream movie since 3, and I haven't watched Scream in a year that starts with 2. You know, they started with 19 when I watched Scream. And so you're saying after having Jay and Silent Bob in Scream 3, Scream 5 is basically Clerks. That's what you're telling me.
Okay, so Wes Craven was really, and Kevin Williamson too, was really, really good at kind of staying ahead of where film and stuff was going. So 4 came out in 2010, and it's all about people who want to get famous online for being influencers. Like he was like 3 years ahead of it. And 5 is just everybody, like, they don't. It's the idea of like, well, you've got to have legacy characters so people will come in and go see your movie, but you also have to be willing to kill at least one legacy character off, and so 5 definitely has that. And 6 is just a brutal movie. Like 6 is probably the most brutal of the entire series. So all of them have this weird, different quirk to them that I dig. So
what we got with Scream, what was established is we're gonna have movies. This is set in a universe where people know all about horror movies and what happens in horror movies. The rules get codified. You have our Tim's favorite character, Randy, played by his favorite comedic actor.
I was going to say at some point you've got to let me have a pontification about Jamie Kennedy, but continue. Go ahead.
Okay.
Are we going to experience it, Tim?
Yeah. So I mean, hey, we introduced Randy as a genre commentator. He keeps us on there. And you know what? What better place, Tim? Go ahead and tell us about how much you love Jamie Kennedy and how he.
Well, first of all, I didn't hate the character. I want everyone to know that I didn't hate the character. The character of Randy, I feel like actually did tie the first 2 movies together. I feel like his death was very, very lame. Okay, where they basically are showing him killed off camera. I think that's very lame. But the one thing that I would say, at 3, when they brought him back for that really meta moment where he had pre-recorded a video in case anything happens to me kind of thing, that was really what kind of solidified the franchise to me and the direction of the franchise as more of a meta franchise. That's like, that's basically saying at this point, this is the direction we're going. So I do, the character of Randy, not terrible. Jamie Kennedy, I loved seeing him get butchered. Okay, I'm going to tell you that right now. I love seeing Jamie. There is not a more unfunny comedian in the entire world than Jamie Kennedy. If you go ahead and watch any of his stuff, and I dare you to laugh. I dare you. You will not laugh. No matter how hard you try to find something funny in his comedy routine, you will not laugh. Okay, so. Anyway, but yeah, Dan, thank you for giving me that platform. I greatly appreciate it.
See, I have no animus. Go ahead, Jason.
I have to reveal something to you. So
in
Scream 5, you meet Randy's 2 twin niece and nephews. Like you meet.
Oh my God.
So Randy's character goes on through his niece and nephews, who are also. Are they played by unfunny comedians? That's the big question. I personally, the girl of the twins is my favorite in the new series. Like, and they're going to be in 7.
Okay.
But as you were listening to that, I was like, I cannot wait to tell Tim that his legacy is
here's
on.
the thing. Here's the thing about Scream. Okay, here's the thing about Scream is Scream actually, like we mentioned, they actually took a little bit of a serious angle in the first movie, where the trailer looked like it was going to be a serious horror film. What I actually appreciate is that there actually is good horror acting in the movie. Right, Neve Campbell is fantastic in that movie.
In
okay.
All of them.
And she is absolutely the like the stereotypical horror damsel in distress. She does a very, very good job. The scene with Matthew Lillard acts his chops off in that movie. He is fantastic. Okay, so
not just Shaggy.
Yeah, it's not like and that's just what kills me is like I think everybody when they look at this, it does have kind of a little goofy tone to it. But when you look at some of the stuff that it actually gave us, it actually did give us good acting in the movie. And that's something that is kind of, I think, sometimes overshadowed by the meta feel and the meta genre that we get. So, and that's a shame, I think. I think that's a shame sometimes that we don't talk about that. You know, nobody talks about Matthew Lillard's character, and he was probably one of the best acted characters in the entire series.
I would say that the opening sequence of Drew Barrymore, it is still meta because it's got the whole telephone conversation about do you like scary movies?
Yeah,
but it is very frightening. It is like it is quintessential horror. You know, it's Hitchcockian.
You didn't know what the movie was when you were watching that. You didn't know it was meta before you were watching that. And so, exactly.
Yeah. All of a sudden, like you're realizing that he could see her. You're realizing that he's nearby. The tension builds slowly. Wes Craven was killing it in directing that whole sequence. So there is definitely scares to be had in Scream, and as it built, go ahead.
I think so I know we're going everywhere with meta. I think Wes Craven, it's really, really a good idea to watch New Nightmare in 94 and then immediately watch 1996's Scream. And the reason I say that is it's kind of Wes Craven closing the book on one genre of slasher. Because in those slasher movies, it's an adult trying to kill a bunch of teenagers. In the 90s, something was happening where it flipped and almost the parents were scared of the youth at that time. Because you're 3 years away from Columbine. Not to get too dark, but and 96 goes from it's not an adult trying to kill teenagers, it's a teenager trying to kill teenager. And I think it just takes that time in because you got to understand 96 is South Park is coming out. A bunch of parents just don't understand their kids and they're almost scared of them. And Wes Craven was like, that's where I want to make my meta mark.
They should have been scared because I graduated. I graduated in 1997. I'm a little older than you guys. I am the cohort of this movie. I am the people, I'm saying? I was a junior in high school and we were angry. We were an angry generation. Listen to our music. It was all alternative and new metal. It was Fred Durst telling you he was going to break things. They tried to give us a peace and love Woodstock and we burned it to the ground.
That's right.
Yeah, what year would that have been? That would have been what?
99, 30-year reunion, 99.
Woodstock 99. So it's only
94 is the Green Day Woodstock performance where they all throw the sewage mud at everybody, right?
Yeah, but they were still peace and love a little bit. They were that kumbaya. By 99, they trapped everybody on an Air Force takeoff thing with no shade anywhere and charged you $5 for a bottle of water and trapped you in, and people just lost their minds. They ripped it all down and burned it.
Yeah.
So
Dude,
we were angry kids. Go ahead.
You watched the Woodstock documentary where they show Korn playing the first night of Woodstock?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
incredible.
We don't need to see the documentary, Jason. We saw Korn play at Woodstock.
Well,
Okay, like
Yeah.
it was all over
Did you buy it
MTV.
on
I mean,
pay-per-view?
it was nonstop for
Yeah.
days that entire
Yeah,
summer. You know,
it was
like,
it was live.
It was what, Dan? It was like a week, right? It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They had it
Me and
on
my
They
sister
stopped the
bought it
show.
on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Red Hot Chili Peppers are playing, and they stop the show because fires are being lit, and they tell the Red Hot Chili Peppers, like, we need to calm these kids down, and they come out and play Jimi Hendrix's Fire. You know, did they come out and play Under the Bridge? Nope.
Yeah.
But anyway, I love my generation. That's, you know, we were good
But
kids.
it's
We were
just
good
Wes
kids.
Craven. Wes Craven had his finger on the pulse. Like, he knew when it was time to end the '80s, and we went into the '90s.
Yeah,
So-
and I think there was
Go
a
ahead.
calling for something else. There definitely was a calling for something else because the '80s gave us very, very good horror, but I do think that there needed to be a different take on horror because we were kind of doing the same thing. It's just like, you know, what's you know, it's kind of like Clifford, you know, where the old Clifford books where it's just like, here's Clifford in the firehouse, here's Clifford in the school, here's Clifford at the library, you know. It was like that with Jason. It was just like, where else could we put Jason? Oh, let's put him in outer space. I mean, at some point, right? At some point, we just need to say, okay, is there a different angle we can take on this character, or a different angle we can take on this genre? And that's kind of what Wes Craven introduced.
So, and with the sequels, it really built, because the sequels don't just talk about the genre. The sequels talk about how sequels work. This is what happens in the second one because this is the second one. You know, we're in a trilogy now. You know, that kind of thing. And
well, and you gotta love in the second one. Okay, right before Randy dies. All right, right before Randy dies, he taunts the killer, who was the guy's mom that we didn't know until the very end, but he taunts the killer with the fact that you're never going to be like OJ. Do you remember that? Like,
Yeah.
and this was legitimately like a year or two after OJ. Okay, this was because Scream 2 came out in what, 98, 99? So it would have been like just a couple years after the OJ trial. Okay, like this was like right there. So you talk about meta, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. We're talking about like an event that was just like right then, like the most famous murder trial to this day in our nation's history. And it was just dropped like that because that's what makes a genre meta is just stuff like that.
so, but here's the question. Did Scream evolve meta horror, or did it lock it into a formula? Is it stuck in a loop that these sequels have been repeating for 25 years?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the danger.
But I would
Jason?
argue that 5 and 6 are completely different than 2 and 3. And 4.
I don't think it locked the genre. I think it locked that franchise a little bit. It kind of boxed in that franchise, but the meta genre has still evolved. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost to the point where every horror film is semi-meta now. Like there are elements of almost every horror film that are kind of in that category now. And so I would argue that no, it didn't box in the genre, but it definitely boxed in the Scream franchise.
So yeah, it goes other places. So Scream comes out. This is we're in 1996. It's huge. It's got the teen self-awareness, the Dawson's Creek drama, and then of course our Dawson man, Kevin Williamson. He's not just known for Dawson's Creek, which is of course his pinnacle of achievement, probably above Scream. R.I.P. James Vanderbeek.
I don't want to wait for our lives to be over.
He went on a run because he wrote the screenplay for I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I just recently learned was based on a novel. I did not know that. Yeah, it is. I read that today. It was an adapted work. I thought it was an original screenplay.
Yeah.
Tim mentioned it. He wrote The Faculty. So, if you had a hot chick in your movie that didn't get nude in your horror film, Kevin Williamson probably wrote it in the late 90s, Tim. And Tim has a bone to pick with him about that, I think. But, he went on a run. And all of these were to some degree, not like Scream, but like they're all a little meta. Wouldn't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Like at least a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that came after this in the 90s and early 2000s was kind of like that. I mean, we had urban legends, very meta, right?
Oh God.
We had Final Destination, very meta. Everything that kind of came after this was all very, very much, very, very much about the meta focus and the legend that comes from this. It's almost like people were tired of the same old stories around the campfire. What if something happened to the people while they were telling the stories around the campfire? Like that's almost what it was like. And I feel like there were a lot of different franchises that kind of spun off of this, but they, like you mentioned, Dan, I know what you did last summer, The Faculty, all that. There's a whole bunch that kind of happened within this time frame, and they all kind of had their own spins and their own things that made them different and unique. But they all kind of focused on these same elements that we've been discussing.
Yeah, and most of them, Scream, I know you did last summer, they're very slasher centric. You brought up Final Destination. That's more of a I don't know, paranormal fate kind of thing. It's not really slasher. Mm-hmm. And horror's roots aren't slasher. Horror's roots are like Victorian identity horror. You got your haunted house type tropes. You've got your your monster type horror. And if you want to get meta on the whole thing, just throw it all in a big meta bucket and mix it together. It starts with the haunted house trope, but and goes meta, but it goes on from there. You got to go to Cabin in the Woods.
A true love letter to horror.
Yeah. So and I think it brings the concept of the meta horror full circle, whereas New Nightmare telling a story traps evil, right? Mm-hmm. The conceit of Cabin in the Woods is that we make these horrors to placate evil gods that must have a sacrifice. Like the whole thing is like a ritual that must be completed correctly. And there's satiric humor in there, but it's in the background. Definitely. More of like a corporate structure of like, these people whose office job is to construct these things to happen and pacify the gods. And they're kind of bored about it. They take side bets. So, but that was kind of like, a whole nother level. It was meta on top of meta-ness. What was your feeling of something like that?
About a movie that did not advertise that it was meta. I went to go see Cabin in the Woods probably the night it came out. I remember it was, I was really excited about it because I was like, ooh, this looks fun. Because I think Josh Whedon wrote it, if I'm not mistaken. And,
yeah, I think so, yeah.
And I was on a big Josh Whedon kick. He had just done, I finished Buffy. I loved Buffy. He had done a really good run on X-Men. So I was like, Josh Whedon, I'm in. And you go see that movie, and the first 5 minutes, you're like, what is this? And it's not until they make that turn with about 35 minutes left in the movie that you finally figure it out, and you're like, oh my God, this is brilliant. What?
Yeah. Yeah. So did it end the meta conversation though? Like, did it burn all the bridges? Is there nowhere left to go with meta commentary after that?
I don't think so, because here's the thing. Meta commentary always follows society. And society will always be changing, and therefore meta will also follow with it. Because I feel like any kind of meta filmmaking or storytelling is kind of holding a mirror up to the real world. I think that's another element of meta, especially horror.
So is all horror meta now? You know, has irony replaced fear? You know, our audience is too genre savvy to be scared. That's basically where we're
Yeah,
at.
I think the one thing that I would say is that yeah, this is a good comment. Meta is the default. I don't know that it's the default, but I do think that because I think there are good, successful franchises out there that are not meta. I don't think The Conjuring is really meta, right?
Mm-mm.
And I wouldn't think you know, the Terrifier kind of is, I guess, but
Yeah, Terrifier's very
yeah.
meta.
So yeah, Terrifier kind of is, but like The Conjuring is not, and there are, you know, there are some other but I think one of the things that I've noticed is even the films that are not meta have semi meta elements to them, right? Like I would not consider I would not consider The Strangers a meta film, but it starts with the most meta beginning of all time, which is this is based on true events, and what happened in this cabin was not totally known to this day. And I mean, that's very meta, right?
Mhm.
That's a very, very meta concept. So even the films that aren't meta are adding meta elements to them. And you know, that's something else we didn't even get into, but like the Blair Witch and Paranormal Activity and movies like that are very, you know, the camera itself, having a free camera is very, very meta, in my opinion. I think that's something that's very meta, because that is there anything else that plays to the audience and puts the audience in the film, like this looks like it could be on your camera right now at any time. And that's the kind of stuff in my mind that, you know, that it all started with Scream, right? I mean, it all started with New Nightmare, but that it got really, the heat got turned up in Scream. And then now it just kind of seems like there's different things and different elements everywhere. So, you know, to answer your question, Dan, I don't think that it's the default. I do think that it is sprinkled in everywhere now. It wasn't before, it is now. So that's that. I don't know if that answers the question.
I would say, with the exception of the A24 movies, like there's not much meta in The Witch. Like it's a slog. I don't think there's much meta in Hereditary, or Midsommar, or The Babadook, or like any of those, like I call them trauma horror movies, but because it's just everybody's sad all the time. They can't even be scared because they're sad.
too sad to be scared. So
yeah, I mean, like let me just give you an example of exactly like when meta, I think, ruined something that I loved. Okay, I'll give you a good example. There was a great show on AMC for years and years called The Walking Dead, and it was an amazing show. Okay, and what really made the show great was that these people had absolutely no concept whatsoever of zombies. Okay, it was not anything that had ever been introduced into society. There was no Night of the Living Dead. There was no Resident Evil. There was no reference for them for zombies at all. That's what made it great, right? And I think we went seasons and seasons and seasons without any kind of a reference back to that. And then they introduced a spin-off series called Night of the Living Dead, which is awful, just in case you're curious. Totally awful. And the first episode that they have, they've got the little Randy-like character that's explaining what zombies are and how you kill them and how we, you know, and how the virus spreads and all this stuff based on the research that he's done. And as soon as they did that, I was just like, no, we went meta on The Walking Dead. And the fact that
that sounds like Zombieland.
Yeah.
Exactly. The fact that it was absent, from the series is what made the series great to begin with. So, you know, meta can ruin things if we're not careful. Okay. I think we need to be very, very careful. I think it has ruined something. I think when they introduced it to the Michael Myers movies, for example, they tried to go back, and you can't go back. Okay. You can't go back and try to do traditional horror once you've gone meta. You can't do it that way. So I think it can ruin things if you're not careful, and I think that's what we need to be careful of. So yeah.
Is Zombieland meta horror, or is it just comedy?
No, it's a parody. It's a parody 1,000%. Like there's
not much horror in it. I'll give you.
It's a parody. It's not horror. Now it's a great movie. I will.
Yeah,
it's one of the best comedies of the early 2000s. You know, it's one of the best comedies of the early 2000s. R.I.P. Bill Murray. Right? Like, you know, I can't believe they just threw you over the balcony and left you there, but awesome.
So, you go ahead, Jason. Go ahead, make the point you were going to make.
Oh, well, I just, some breaking news just came across my phone. Nothing to do with meta horror. So let's finish this, but we're going to have a talk about what just came across my phone.
Okay. So, the next question is just, we've went a lot of places with meta, and meta is commentary. It's commentative on what's come before, and now you're stacking commentary on top of commentary. You have to have new fuel for something like this. So where does meta have left to go? Like where do you think they're going to be able to take it tomorrow in Scream 7? Like, is there more ground to conquer? Like, meta humor could always exist because you can reach out and make fun of anything. But
I think there's got to be something that relates to the period, because the period is what changes everything. So for me, when I see the trailer and we see Ghostface come down in the middle, like he was hiding in the attic and he came down. Now in 1996, that makes sense. In 2026, I'm wondering how come no one saw him on the Ring? How come he didn't get any kind of alert from the cameras around the house? You know, there's all kinds of things here that don't make sense in 2026 that maybe they could introduce a little meta element to. Okay, those are the kind of things that you got to work on if you're going to do a meta film in this time frame. So if you're going to do something that is now spanning 30 years, you've got to work within the time frame, because the time frame and the era and the things that are going to be relevant to this era of viewer, that's what's going to make it unique. Okay, so if for me, that's where I would go if I was Scream 7. What do you guys think?
Jason?
I think what we're going to see is there is a big push, and not in real life. I think we're going to see some ideas of how cancel culture is a negative thing. I think they're going to grave on the fact of, we thought Sydney Prescott was like one of the best final girls, and we turned on her because she's not in 6. She's just not in the movie at all. And I think it's going to be a commentary on how we're willing to throw people out because of, whatever. And I could see that being really where we go in Scream 7.
Well, and you got to wonder if they're going to pull a Halloween Resurrection and kill her, right? Like, you got to wonder. Right?
No.
You don't think they're going to kill? You don't think they're going to kill Sydney? I don't know.
No, not at all.
7 movies, 30 years. This was about the point. Right, this was about the point when they killed Jamie Lee Curtis. Now, they didn't really kill her, but we didn't know that. Okay, but this is, what did he do? He threw her out the window or something, right?
Yeah, he did.
So
it
was at the beginning of Resurrection. It was at the beginning of Resurrection, right?
I'll tell you what.
At the mental
Michael may be Michael may be the OG, but Fred, good old Fred, you might beat him for one film, but you'll be dead within the first 20 minutes of the next one.
That's true. Well, the only thing that could be, I'm gonna not curse, but the only thing that could stop Freddy Krueger is a crappy remake.
Yeah. No remake.
If we're looking at what they're doing, right? This is about the same time frame with Sydney as when they would have killed Jamie Lee Curtis. Mm-hmm. That's very meta, and so it would make sense if Sydney died. So Just
Yeah,
throwing that out there.
they could do a whole thing. The niece and nephew could talk about how, in H2O it was the time.
Do you guys know why? So they had their replacement. They had Jenna Ortega and what's her face, and Jenna Ortega wanted too much money and walked. And what's her face said a bunch of political things about not liking the Jewish people, and
Oh, geez,
got
no,
fired.
not smart in Hollywood.
So they begged Ned Campbell to come back.
What's up, OG?
Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Oh, he's a wrestling fan. That OG Bloodline. That's a wrestling fan.
Yeah. That's the
the
tribe,
bloodline,
right?
Yeah,
we're all very
Yeah, we ain't
we're all very much into the bloodline.
Yeah. So, but what were we saying, Jason? You were talking about the girl was down on the Jewish culture.
Yeah, she's not a big fan of the Jewish people, and she
yeah,
got fired. And
so
they
now
begged Ned Campbell to come back. So they ain't killing her. No way.
By begged, you mean backed up the Brinks truck, is what you're saying?
Yes, because they wanted her in 6, and they were like, "Look, we'll pay you this," and she was like, "Absolutely not."
Dan heard me pontificate it for a long time, and you're going to have to hear it now, Jason. I am furious that they did not back up the Brinks truck and get Neve Campbell for the 2nd season of Twisted Metal. I'm furious, okay? And it's probably because she was filming the stupid movie that she couldn't do it.
Well, apparently Neve Campbell demands a pretty penny nowadays. I mean, she's she's not bothered unless she's got to get paid.
Yeah,
they ended up having to give it to the Madison girl from the She-Hulk movie, from the She-Hulk series.
Oh,
and I was furious.
I love that show so much.
Yeah. So Thug Dog feels like meta horror has peaked. He said we're post meta. It says traditional horror is trying to make a comeback, but the Zennials don't like it as much. So is it time for regular horror to push meta back in its box? What do you think, Jason?
I don't think
is
you can.
Meta horror? You don't think you can, Tim?
Yeah, it's out of the box now. Like it's kind of like my sister told me this one time, and it stuck with me forever. I was like 14, 15 years old, and I was talking about why I like Kevin Smith movies. And that's right, OG Bloodline. And my sister told me, she said, because I said, he talks like I do. He talks like me and my friends do. And my sister said, I'm going to really mess with your head. If Kevin Smith wasn't writing the way he wrote, you and your friends probably wouldn't talk the way that you do. And so I think that applies to horror too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I very much am.
If Kevin
not so
Smith,
much so.
I'm not a meta horror fan like these guys are, but I am a horror fan. So yes, absolutely.
yeah, we're definitely horror fans.
Watch the rest of the stream. You'll hear all my thoughts on meta horror. For sure.
Yeah,
and
Tim is a more traditional horror. Here's the thing that you have to understand about Tim. He's not a huge fan of fun. So when you introduce fun, it doesn't matter if it's a superhero movie or a horror movie. If the fun meter gets a little bit too high, he's out. He's checking out on that. The silliness must stay at an absolute minimum.
I love fun. I enjoy fun. Okay.
As long as it's not your superhero content or your horror movie. Yeah.
Or Star Wars. Okay.
Or Star Wars.
Or Star
Dead
Trek.
serious. Yeah. High adventure fun, maybe, but not comedy fun, unless it's like C-3PO. Yeah.
That's right.
But weirdly, was a big fan of Skeleton Crew.
Yeah. So, you can't. He's hard to predict. It's hard to nail down.
They're just making stuff up. They're just making stuff up. Okay.
You're an enigma wrapped in a question, Tim.
So Flash ain't fast.
Smothered in secret sauce.
Says meta horror isn't going anywhere. Even stories with a more traditional feel still have meta elements.
Yeah.
This is normal now.
I feel like this is much better than the last one. The last one, like, the last one basically said, it has peaked, and traditional is trying to make a comeback. I just feel like it's not going anywhere because of the audience. I feel like the audience loves this meta stuff. Like, and Dan and I go back and forth with our friend Jonathan May all the time, right? So we go back and forth with our friend Jonathan May, and when we talk about all this multiversal stuff in the superhero films, for example, and Dan and I are like, that's stupid. Why don't you just reboot the franchise? Jonathan's like, but then we could have this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy all in the same movie. Wouldn't that be awesome? And we're like, no. Okay, that's the difference between meta. That's the difference between meta and an actual story. And that's kind of like this new generation, they just love that stuff. They lap it up. They love it. They want everything to be, this meta, self-aware, semi-comical. This is why Deadpool is always going to be $1 billion movie, because people will go and see Deadpool just because they love the fact that he tells the jokes and winks and nods to the audience and has all this self-awareness, and the story doesn't matter no matter how awesome it is, and you're going to see all kinds of gratuitous violence, and it's going to be all kinds of fun that doesn't matter at all. That's what these people love. They love this mindless fun. Me, myself, I'm not that guy.
So, Jason, we have Kenny and some letters and numbers. He loves even the hated Scream movies, 3 and 6, but 7 movies in the series was going numb sooner or later. What do you think, Jason?
I don't think so. And for the record, I love 6. Like, listen, one of my favorite Friday the 13th movies is Jason Takes Manhattan. And I love all the callbacks. I'm not sure about that. I love all the callbacks to Jason Takes Manhattan. I think they do some really cool stuff in 6. Now, I know some people don't like the fact that Ghostface uses a shotgun at one point in time, but I think that's kind of cool. Like, so I like 6. 3 is a bit of a mess, but 6 is fun.
Need to get over that. It's not like it's always Bruce Wayne's Batman. It's like a different person in each movie. So you can't Ghostface X. It's not. Okay. So so anyway, let's talk about it in the Dairy TV show for a minute. I want to talk about it because if we're going to talk about meta, back all the way back to Tim Curry's It. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Paul Skarsgård, or was it Paul Skarsgård? Which Skarsgård was it? Bill Skarsgård. Okay, sorry. Bill Skarsgård's It. Both of them did the thing where they're looking more at the camera than they are at the kid. All right, and that to me is it's a very meta element. Okay. It's a very meta element, and like when Tim Curry pops up out of the drain, he's not even looking at the kid; he's looking at the camera. Okay,
yes,
and that to me is definitely more of, and that adds to me. Stephen King, I think, is very meta. Okay, his stuff is always very meta. The Shining and Misery are about essentially what would happen to him if he was stranded in those situations. Okay. They're both about writers. So it's like, so you think to yourself, Stephen King is very, very meta anyway. I felt like both movies for it were very meta. I haven't seen the Dairy TV series. Jason, shed some light on that for me.
I adored Welcome to Dairy. It was like,
was it meta?
Were
there meta elements?
It's got some meta to it in the fact of once you figure it out, like the entire show is based around it being a prequel, and you're not really sure like how it all ties together. But once you figure it out, and once they drop a scene, probably about episode 7 that takes place at the Black Spot Club. And if you've read the book, you know what the Black Spot Club is. But once you figure out why Pennywise is doing what he's doing, and it kind of is just it's a sequel instead of a prequel. Mm-hmm. It's hard to explain. I don't want to ruin it, but it is fantastic storytelling, and I really hope season 2 gets picked up.
So Jason, now again, full disclosure, me and Tim have only made it through 3. I'm going to buckle down this weekend and try to make it through 7 by the end of the weekend. But 10, and I'm going to have to rewatch the first 3 because I haven't watched the Scream movie with a year that starts with 2.
I'm not watching them. So have fun, guys.
Tim is tapping out.
Tim, it'll be so much fun.
but Kenny wants to, I don't know if you're gonna like you were sticking up for the ones he said people don't like with 3 and 6, Jason, but you've had some disparaging words about 4. So
4 is I think motive wise is the creepiest of them all. Like 4 has some real, like the reason that the killers are doing what they're doing is very unsettling to me. I don't know why. I guess it's because I was about their age when they did that movie, when it came out. But I will say 4 is also weirdly shot. It's Wes Craven's last movie. So
I was going to get to that. As soon as we got to 4, I remembered that the original contract was for 4 movies for Wes Craven. Mm-hmm. I did remember that. And so I think it stands to reason that he kind of thought this was a swan song, and the studio thought it was a swan song, but then it got picked up later as well. It's like, we could do another one. So
there's always money. I feel like you can't walk away from all there's money. There's always money.
That's why I think when you get to the final one of a contract, it's like the studio wants certain things from it, the director wants certain things from it, and it doesn't always pan out. I think that's typically what happens in those situations. Can't speak to it because I haven't seen it, but that was going to be a point I was going to bring up, Jason.
4 is the only one in the series that I got the killer wrong on. Like I got half of it. I clocked half of it immediately. But like Haley, my wife goes and sees these movies with me. She gets so mad at me because we're sitting in the theater like 30 minutes in, and I'm like, it's this person.
It's that guy.
Yeah, like it's them. Like, and she's like, how do you know that? And I've always been able to tell where writers are going. If you want to go back in the Wayback Machine, remember Alien Earth?
Yeah,
I clocked that immediately.
Jason, I still think you have a time machine or something. I don't know how you figured that out.
What were we? We were 1 episode in, maybe 2, and Jason's like, she's gonna tame the xenomorph like a dog.
She's gonna talk to it like a dog.
And we're like, where are you even coming up with this?
Well, I remember it was the episode where she heard it whining in the egg, and I was like, oh, I don't like where that's going. Like, she can talk to him. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing they could do, and they did it.
So, Bloodline is asking about Final Destination movies. I think I may have seen the first one. I don't know that I've seen it. Have you guys seen the Final Destination movies?
I've seen all of them.
Oh yeah.
Tim,
I've seen at least 3. Okay. Which one was the one with the roller coaster?
That's 3.
That's 3. Okay. That's the last one I saw.
So 1 is the plane crash. 2 is the most traumatizing scene I've ever seen in a movie. To this day, anytime I'm behind a log truck, like my hands start sweating.
Yeah.
So
3 is the roller coaster. 4 is a NASCAR race.
That's weird. That's.
5
now, and those movies are very, very meta. Very, very meta. Yeah. Like as they're finding it out and all that kind of stuff. Same with Urban Legend. They go back and they all have the commentary and they all kind of look at the audience and talk about it. It's very meta.
Yeah, and no, we've definitely seen all the Mission Impossibles.
We've seen all the Mission Impossibles. I would not consider them meta horror. I think it depends.
Or meta.
I think that I think they could be considered horror after you get past about 3. I think they're just scary, terrible, but that's okay.
I haven't seen all of them.
Yeah, I think the latest ones were great, man.
I think that the first 3 I think are very good, and I think that they tie together well, which is nice.
Really, but, you think 2 is very good?
I think it ties to the first one very well. Yeah,
isn't 3 the
Woo movie?
Yeah. I think they keep getting. I just like how the stunts keep getting better. You know, like Ghost Protocol.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
the fact that
climbing the Burj Khalifa,
one of those crazy stunts every movie. It's nuts, man.
Hanging off the side of an airplane.
That was the craziest one.
And he's in his 60s. You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, did they let him pilot a helicopter into a dead spin? It's like, who's like, okay, yeah, he could do this. Let him dead spin a helicopter, and like, who's writing the insurance for that? This is Tom Cruise. If he wrecks into the mountain, you don't have a movie or any more movies at all. You're done. You're done.
It's over.
But they're like, yeah, you know what? Let him dead spin the helicopter. It's all right. Let him hang off the plane.
He'll land it.
Let him free solo a canyon. You know.
I mean, look, yeah, you remember they had to postpone one because he snapped his leg jumping in between buildings.
Yeah. So anyway, OG Blunt said death itself is the villain in the Final Destination. That's a pretty good. Yeah, it's
I have supposedly there's a script. I have not read it, but supposedly there's a script in which death becomes a person and starts chasing him down. It's more of a slasher. That was the original plan.
That's funny. That'd be like a Christmas Carol. Yeah, Ghost of Christmas Future starts chasing you around, you know. So I have a few let's see how many I've got 3 argument grenades. No, 1, 2, 3. Okay. I got 4 argument grenades. You want to run through these in quick succession? So the first one that I have left is meta horror only works during slasher fatigue. It says that it's a correction, not a movement. It only happens when audiences are bored. So slasher fatigue gives you New Nightmare. 90s fatigue gives you Scream. 2010 trope exhaustion gives you Cabin in the Woods. So is it just a reset button? Is it not its own thing? Is it just a reaction to things needing to be reset?
I disagree with that. I think it is. I mean, it's always, like I said, I think it's almost a funhouse mirror of society. Like it's you looking in the mirror, and it's over exaggerated and it's goofy, but So I don't know if I agree with that.
I think I do agree with it to an extent. I do think that it is the direction that studios decide to go when they think that they have pushed the boundary of a genre, and it's not just horror, right? We've already mentioned it with Deadpool and superhero films. We've mentioned it in action films. We've mentioned it in other stuff. Meta is kind of a way to add something different without having to completely change everything. So studios, this is kind of their default setting when they feel like they've hit a wall with a genre and they can't really go anywhere else. I think it is kind of a default setting. I don't necessarily know that it's just definitely what they go for. I think it's just, it's kind of what they feel like they have to do.
So here's my next one. And I think I'm going to say I endorse this message. So this is a way forward. The next evolution of meta horror won't be about movies. The next meta horror won't critique horror films. It'll critique fandom. It can attack true crime obsession, online sleuth culture, franchise tribalism, and toxic fandom. These could be topics for meta commentary within a horror film.
I'm afraid I've got some bad news for you, Dan.
What's that?
That is the main point of Scream 5.
Oh, okay. So it's been there. It's done that. This is not the way forward. This is a way back.
But I do think it isn't something that's been done a lot, and I do think that is probably, especially when we're looking at it a new age where everybody has an opinion that is out there. I mean, here we are talking to our 200 some followers right now about our opinions on this stuff. Everybody has an opinion that's out there right now, and this is kind of maybe a direction you could go with something like that for sure.
So Bloodline was said that they finished. Yeah.
Well, you're way ahead of me, Bloodline.
The next Final Destination. And okay, I got two more of these. Okay, this one's okay. Irony is the enemy of fear. Just that.
I don't know if I agree with that either.
I think that there can be very, very scary elements in these movies, even though they kind of do some things ironically. I think, when we mentioned Scream, and I mentioned that scene with Matthew Lillard that I think everybody thinks about, where he's all super serious, and has the gun, and that is very, very scary moment, and great acting, by the way, in the midst of a good story. So even though we have meta, I feel like we actually have some really good moments that are really scary. And that Drew Barrymore scene, another one, right?
Yeah.
Drew Barrymore scene is the perfect example of, there's irony there, right? There's a lot of irony there, but you didn't know what you were going into in that theater, right? You didn't know what you were going into in that theater, but that right there was a very scary scene. And I think that everybody can agree with that, even though it's the scene that we all saw in the trailer. It was. Okay. Yeah. It was the scene we all saw in the trailer. We all knew how it was going to end, but that's the kind of stuff that, Wes Craven did here. He gave us horror in the midst of irony. And I think that that's something that can be done very well. So Jason, what do you think?
It's like rain on your wedding day.
Is it the good advice that you just didn't take?
Who would have thought? It figures. Dude, I don't know.
I didn't call that one on the bingo card.
When you asked, I was like, yes.
They talk about 1996. Here we are, right? So
yeah. Yeah. So anyway, last one of the argument grenades, and then well, before we go to that, Bloodline wants to know what does dragon mean when he says the darkness is coming. So is that a character in Final Destination?
I don't know. I've been trying to figure that one out. What are you talking about? Are you talking about Final Destination? Is that a character?
Is it a wrestling reference?
I would think it's Final Destination. I would think it's Final Destination, but I have no idea. Like I said, my last one that I saw was 3. Just throwing that out there. So yeah.
Maybe it's a Night of the Seven Kingdoms reference. We're not watching that either. I gave up on GOT a long time ago, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, we've got the Hobbit
movies.
Okay. Oh yeah, he's talking about the rise of Sauron.
You're talking about Smaug when he says the darkness is coming. He's talking about the rise of Sauron. Absolutely.
Yeah. The Hobbit.
I never would have booked that as a Hobbit reference. Bloodline. You got to give us a bigger bread trail than that, man. Okay.
Yeah. That's because Bilbo, of course, takes the ring back home at the end of the Hobbit movies, and he's still holding on to it to give to Frodo. And of course, the darkness has risen by then. Mordor is being resurrected. The Eye is in the tower searching for the ring, so the darkness is coming. But of course, we do know that the king returned and took his throne, and that Sauron was defeated and the ring was destroyed. Yeah. So
speaking of the king returning, Google just popped, like earlier today, I told you I had something that Google popped up on my phone. Apparently after brand new day, we are completely rebooting Spider-Man without Tom Holland.
You know what?
If it leads to a full Marvel reboot, I'm in for it, but I don't know. What do you say, Dan?
Yeah, I was going to say, if that means that the entire MCU is being rebooted, then I am stoked, because
Me too.
It either means that Spider-Man and Sony are severing ties with Disney and will not be taking part in the MCU anymore, or that the MCU itself is totally restarting. Either of which, you know what, are good developments for me. Here's the thing. We're off on a tangent, and I'm going to hit this last argument grenade. But I have enjoyed all three Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. I've enjoyed Tom Holland's participation in all of the other Marvel movies, Civil War, on through to Endgame. But I have no anticipation for Brand New Day. I don't want to go see it. It feels like homework, and I totally expect it to be terrible. I don't know why I expect it to be terrible. Well, because MCU makes exclusively terrible things now, almost, and that's why I have no reason to. I just can't make myself feel like it's going to be good. They named it Brand New Day, which shows a complete disrespect and no understanding of the fan base to name it after one of the most hated and reviled storylines in all of Spider-Man's history. Just lets you know how much they care about the fan base, even though they say they are us. So
let's talk timeline for just a second, guys. All right. Just off the top of your head, when was Homecoming released?
Homecoming
9 years ago. 9 years ago.
9 years ago.
2017. Okay. So when we're talking about timeline, look, I get it. Tom Holland can look like he's 15 years old. He's 29. Okay. He can be Leonardo DiCaprio and look like he's 15 years old until he's 45. But that doesn't matter. The timeline of the MCU is not moving at that pace. The timeline of the MCU is he's going to have to be 10 years older than he was in Homecoming in the next movie. Okay. Mm-hmm. And at some point, it's not going to make sense for him to be Spider-Man when he gets to be in his 50s. That's all there is to it. So, we're only 11 years away from that now. So, I mean, the general rule of thumb for these characters, if you can get a decade and a half out of them for one character, you've done your job. We're looking at the point where we're going to be looking at about a decade, and that's pretty good.
So I did have one more argument grenade.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. If Scream stops being meta, it dies. If it stays meta, it stagnates. So we're in a thing. So does it die if it's not meta? Is it stagnating because it is? That's
it's always going to be meta. It's always going to be meta. Yeah. That's the nature of the franchise, right? It would be like Naked Gun being a serious cop film. It's not going to happen, right? The nature of the franchise is for it to be meta. It's going to be meta. And yes, I do believe it's kind of had a little bit of a stagnation snag, just a little bit.
So in Spider-Man No Way Home movie, that is definitely the multiverse. That is a multi. Yeah, No Way Home was still that is at a perfect multiversal execution as much as you can get. The funnest part of a multiverse is when you're reaching the end of the run of your third or fourth or fifth version of a character, right? And then you have the big multiversal crossover where all the versions come together for an adventure. I mean, the Ninja Turtles have done this at least 3 or 4 times, where this current run, the current run is coming to an end, and then we go all the way back to the 80s cartoon version and every version in between, and they all come together and fight the various Pangs and Shredders, And it's always fun, and it's a great way to wrap it all up with a little bit of nostalgia. It's hard to do it in
That's what Crisis was too, right? So
yeah. Here's the thing that multiverses are good at: rebooting. They're good to tie everything up in a bow and close it out. Is not great for ongoing storytelling, because in an ongoing story setting, it robs everything of stakes. So that's a that's our multiversal quandary. We're not. Tim is a multiverse hater. I'm a multiverse apologist.
Hater.
Yeah,
big hater. I'm a big hater.
Yeah.
I would pee on it and light it on fire if I could, but
Tim,
it's not something I can do.
I move closer and closer to your side on this. Like,
yeah. So, anyway, I think we hit on all of the concepts that we wanted to cover with meta horror. Did we have any other meta horror side quests that we needed to cover?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. I mean, all in all, I think that the genre did some good things all throughout the 90s and throughout the early 2000s. I do think that we've got to the point where now everybody kind of incorporates those elements, even if it's not a hardcore meta story. But I do think that it is now a played genre. It was a new, fresh genre, I think, in the mid-90s. Now it is a little bit of a played genre, and a lot of people kind of expect it. It's kind of like when Shyamalan did The Sixth Sense, everybody was like shocked. Oh my goodness, you caught me off guard. But then about 2 Shyamalan movies after that, we started figuring it out about halfway through the movie, right? About halfway through the movie, we're like, I know where he's going with this. And that's kind of where it's at with the meta. We kind of can see all the moving cogs now. So it's not as big of a shock to what we expect as what it was in the mid-90s.
Yeah, I would say meta has more legs than the twist ending. Or because here's the thing. Here's the thing about Shyamalan and the building everything on twist endings. Twist endings only work when you don't walk into the theater knowing there's going to be a twist ending. So if every movie ends with a twist, you're trying to figure it out the whole time. And
I think it was about The Village. It was about The Village when I was sitting in The Village, and I was just like, I already know it. I know the whole thing. I have to sit through another hour and a half of this. I already know it. What's going on? So that's, I think that's kind of, and meta is kind of like that, right? It's kind of like that where the shock factor is not really there as much as it was in the mid-90s, but we can still enjoy those elements, and they can still add a nice little twist here and there, and things that can make those movies fun where they wouldn't have been a little fun before. So, and everybody knows how much I love fun. So, yeah.
So we're way out on the limb here. So we've wrapped up our meta horror conversation. In Nerd Champ news, okay, going forward, we still have some more Motu shorts to drop, maybe a few Voltron shorts to drop. And, while we're talking about our Motu discussions, yes, Jared Leto is playing Skeletor. And yes, we really enjoy talking about Skeletor, but apparently people don't like to talk about Skeletor when you talk about Jared Leto. They don't like to talk about the Joker, and they don't like to talk about Morpheus. They only have one topic in mind when you post a short that mentions Jared Leto. So that's happening here on the channel. So if you see
all we want to know is how's the acting. All right, that's all we really want to know. All
can he deliver the voice?
Can he laugh in that high-pitched shrill? You know what I mean? We don't care about what happened on the island. What really matters is our 1980s Gen X cartoon loving selves need to see an accurate Skeletor That's what really matters in life. And if he can deliver that, great job, Jared.
Can he deliver a devastating burn to Beastman? That's what we need to see happen. That's our number one concern. Jason, you had
burn.
Yeah.
Like, never mind. I don't want to get into that. I'm excited for Masters of the Universe. Like, is that just well known? Like, because when you guys showed me those comments, I was like, how does everybody know this? Like,
I mean, it's 2 million pages. I guess they all just searched it. I don't know.
Or did they just assume that because they didn't like Suicide Squad?
Here's the thing.
He had to be in it.
I am not wanting to go down this rabbit hole. It is not my favorite topic, right? But so it sent me into a deep conversation with Grok. Okay, that's who I sorted this out with. I tried to have this talk with ChatGPT, but unsurprisingly, ChatGPT didn't want to talk about it. it wanted to send me in another direction. But basically, I mean, I asked every way I could figure. I didn't start Googling because I don't want to go down the rabbit holes, and I don't want to read 3 million pages of documents either. So you know what I'm saying? I need some reliable source to summarize this crap for me. And there are no actionable facts, no like legal standard things that you can find anywhere that implicate anyone of doing anything criminal outside of Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell. That's it. Those are the only people. Now, as far as a hearsay, this person said this guy got accused of that, right? There are billionaire powerful people, right, that are named as like, oh, yeah. But the only recognizable name in that list, unless you're into reading Forbes or something, is the Prince. What's his name? I'm not an Anglophile. Yeah. I'm not into the royal family, and I still don't know that guy's name. It's Prince Dipshit, Andrew. As far as I know. I don't care.
I agree with
Andrew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prince Andrew.
Yeah. So he's the only recognizable name. The other names that are actually like even accused of doing things in this stuff are like hedge fund billionaires and finance dudes. And then I'm not even talking about names like see, I don't want to throw it out there and feed names into the, but like if I was to say Jamie Dimon, a lot of people would know who I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? People would know who that is. These guys are not that. They're just like random hedge fund billionaire dudes that like your average person who doesn't watch, the business channel, you wouldn't know who they are. And that's why anybody who's a little bit weird, who's famous, their name gets thrown into the hopper and associated with this, because if they use the real names, nobody would listen. Nobody would care. It's not that scintillating. It's not any famous actors. It's not Donald Trump or even Bill Clinton. So whichever side you are on, feel vindicated in what I just said. Your dude is not implicated in these things as far as I can figure out, but everybody wants it to be. It's awful. What happened is awful, and I don't want to get into the details, but it's not awful. Yeah, it's not awful enough for the public. The public needs it to be so much worse than it was. I don't know why they need it to be worse. It's bad enough, but for some reason
we just hate Jared Leto for Morbius.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That is exactly the conversation
there is nothing on that island that could have happened that could have been more egregious than Morbius. I'll go ahead and say it, and I don't care if I get us canceled for it.
What makes animal go into a mutation? Okay, we got to know what animal we're talking about.
Some questions here.
Yeah. Man, we're getting far flung. We will do our best to answer that if you give us a little bit more context. We will work hard to do it.
I will go ahead and answer this one. It was Chernobyl.
It was Chernobyl. Chernobyl makes
yes. Well, there you go. Yeah. Chernobyl.
Boom. Animals mutate. Chernobyl.
Boom. Like a boss.
In other news, I'm getting very slow at some editing, but Jason and I have already recorded our review of The Burbs versus the Burbs, the show versus the movie. Stay tuned for that. Did we love it? Did we hate it? How much did we love the movie? Did we not like the
I'll
movie?
give
I
you a
don't know.
guess.
Yeah. Give you 3 guesses how that turned out. I should have that. Let's see. What makes animal go into? Yeah. So that's still the one.
It's the same
So,
question.
Yeah. So we will have that coming out hopefully this week. And I did mention earlier that I'm going to try to power through 7 Scream movies this weekend because Jason and I are hoping to sit down and have a Scream omnibus discussion. A Scream for 1 through 7. Breakdown. We're gonna go through this whole series and like just break down the movies, what was great, what was bad, that kind of thing, and have that video out. Hoping to have that out before Thursday. So I've got a lot of editing to do, and if you see a bunch of people talking about Tom Hanks and islands and crap like that in our Burbs review, just know that really what we want to talk about is the Joe Dante movie. Yeah. And comparing it to the new Peacock show. That's the conversation that we're trying to have.
Please let us just have that conversation.
Yeah, that's the one that we're deeply interested and invested in. These other conversations, I understand that you're really some of you are really passionate about it. We're not. We weren't there. We didn't witness it. We
don't know anything.
We don't know anything. I'm sure you're certain. What's that?
These guys live in like the Midwest, and I live in Mississippi.
This has been the longest plug in the history of plugs, Dan. Holy moly! What?
Yeah. So that's it. That's all I'm going to say. We got the Burbs. We got Scream. I don't know which Scream actors. I don't know. It hasn't hit the live stream. It'll probably hit the replay of this. I don't know if Nev Campbell.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if Wes Craven was involved.
Dude, I don't really great if Wes Craven was involved.
Yeah. Maybe Heather Langenkamp went to the island. I don't know. But I know she was Nancy.
Her acting was phenomenal.
Yes. I know that Heather Langenkamp plus Freddy Krueger equals great movie. And nothing you tell me about their private lives will dissuade me. That's all I do know.
These comments are going to be one for the ages.
Yeah. So we're off the deep end there at the end, and that's okay. You brought the internet brought this to us. We did not bring it to the internet. That is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, me and Tim had an innocent conversation about Skeletor, and we cut it into little 20-second funny conversations.
We had no idea, and
we were unaware.
And more importantly than having no idea, we don't care. We don't care. Like I could not care. Like somebody could show me pictures and I would be like, but can he do Skeletor? Okay. That's really all I want to know. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I still watch the Cosby Show and laugh. I'm just gonna throw that out there right now.
Exactly.
Well, if you look at the time.
So anyway. If you'd still like to tell people, Jason, where can they find you on the internet?
I am on Instagram at JasonGalt413. Also, if you like horror, I have an analog horror story going on TikTok called Mrs. Haley Silly Hour. Go check that out. That's fun. That story is slowly getting to where we want it to. I had a real fun video today for it. So, that's about it.
All right. Fantastic. Other than that, I am Dan. That is Tim. We are the Nerd Champs. And you can find us right here. We'll be talking about nerd things. And until next time, we hope. Anyway, OH.